Back on the Good Morning Artesia radio show, and Mayor John Henry is here with us, and I got to see you briefly on Thursday last week.
Yes,
and
yes.
then you kicked me out.
I did. I'm sorry. When they say put these in order, that's what I did. So
yeah, what we're talking about, folks, is former Vice President Mike Pence was in Artesia on Thursday.
Yeah,
had a summit of energy-related industry representatives.
Yes, sir.
Wind, solar, power, oil, gas, county, city government you were representing,
Right.
and the state government. Jim Townsend was there.
Yes, sir.
And we were invited to hear the vice president's opening remarks.
Right.
And then we were told, get out.
Yeah. So I tried to make it nicer than that, but yes, basically that's what it was. So
That's what it was. Well, and I think it was because so that a candid discussion could be held without being misinterpreted. And all you have to do is look at the Carlsbad Current Argus Reporter's headline.
Yeah.
What was I? It was Vice President Pence, former Vice President Pence, holds meeting with oil and gas amid air quality concerns.
Yeah, that wasn't it. I didn't read that paper. I didn't. Well, I haven't. I'll leave that there. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
I just people sent me the screenshot of the part where we were kicked out. They showed that part. They said, "Is this true?" And I'm, yeah.
And so that's exactly probably to your point. Why? I mean, that's not at all. Oil and gas was talked about. That was the primary energy and things that we've discussed time and time again. In fact, even whatever show I've been on lately, whether county or city or real estate, it's electric is what we've been talking about a lot. So it had a lot to do with that and how we're going to power our country and the world, really. So
what was kind of your takeaway of some of the information that was shared with the vice president, and what do you think were some of the key points that
I think there were some really great points. I think the group we put together, and I said it last night at the city meeting, I was really proud of the industry leaders we had there because they were very open. They talked about the things that were hindering them, making it a little harder, and they just put a lot of facts out there. We had two different electrical companies there. Both of them laid it out really well. What we've been discussing on the radio of, hey, we don't have the main source anymore. We're starting to lose those, and now we're relying on these. This isn't going to work. We're in a lot of trouble, and so everybody that was there that made their point, I thought really did really good on points. They talked a lot about permitting and how, even though the president says everybody has permits, they went through how many actual permits have gone through New Mexico recently, which is for one of them was 2. I think it's 2 for the whole state. Which is just showing that what we're hearing and what's actually happening on the ground isn't happening. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I really appreciate, and like I've said, anybody that wants to come and talk to us about oil and gas, I appreciate getting that kind of information to folks so they really understand, here's what you hear, here's how it's really affecting industry, and points that are made there. So
yeah, would have been great if the governor had timed her visit to Artesia.
Yeah.
To be maybe possibly in attendance at the meeting and have a conversation with the former vice president and the other people that
or even
there.
Reach out to try to have the same conversation. I mean, she didn't even reach out to let us know she was here, but I mean, just to have the same kind of conversation. I think anybody that wants to hear it, it really is important information, because the more you hear it and then you start tying it in, when you have all those together, you can start, this is what they said, kind of ties in with what they're saying. It kind of, and it's not just oil and gas. Like I said, it ties in with electric. It ties in with the groups having trouble even getting a workforce to work. And so you start tying them all in, and you see the bigger picture. And I think when you walk away, you have a better appreciation for the struggles they're going through, just to try to help power America. And that came, was that a day after, just days after the announcement from OPEC Plus, and so it was really good timing to say, hey, we've got it right here. We've got it in the ground. Here's what hindrances. If we could get through those, we could be right back on track to where we were under the Trump-Pence administration. I mean, we were on a really good track, and America was seeing that. I think we saw lower gas prices. We saw lower energy prices. And shouldn't say lower energy prices, but energy prices weren't as high as they are now. Now we're seeing those loads taken off. Now we're seeing oil and gas get hit. Now we're seeing the rise. I'm sure oil and gas. Last time I checked, I didn't look yesterday. I was busy, but it was in the 90s. So you see it creep, because last time I was here, I think you and I talked about it being in the 80s. Now it's
Right.
already in the 90s, and where's it going to head? Well,
Yeah.
it's going to go up.
And what a lot of people don't realize as well, I think, is that as the mayor and with the city council, and you talk with the department heads and so forth, energy is just as important for running the city
Yes.
as it is for individuals or for businesses that are trying to power their homes. Let me guess, you
Yeah.
probably need electricity to keep the water running.
Yes.
You probably need electricity to keep the toilets flushing. You don't think
Absolutely.
about it that way, but
Yeah.
they're once
You're
you
right.
flush, it goes someplace, and there's electricity involved in that.
Absolutely.
I'm guessing you can't do many road improvements without asphalt or oil and gas related
Yeah.
products and things like that. So so these challenges that not only affect individuals also affect city budgets, don't
Absolutely, yeah. And when they affect us, just think of the ramifications of how it's passed down. If we can't get the asphalt at a reasonable price, now all of a sudden your road repairs are hindered because you can't do as much because the price. Equipment. People don't think about how bad it affects our equipment. We can't get big equipment right now. No one can. It's not just cities, counties. I mean, pick something. You can't get heavy equipment because they're on back order. Why? Because the supply chain got hurt. Why? Because fill in the blank. They still say COVID. I think there's a lot more to it now. But so when all this energy starts backing up, you can't get the equipment, you can't get the product, you can't. So now all of a sudden, when you do get them, they're twice as much. So rather than doing 10 miles, you might can only do 5 miles. I mean, the backup becomes big. And then what happens? You might not have power to your house, but also the road's bad. So now I'm getting yelled at twice. One, I can't control because power grid. I wish we could have more input, but we don't. And the other one we can, but we got to do best what we can with what we have. So it's a big deal.
When you look around the city departments, are there areas that are considered critical emergency, and there's been provisions for backup power for some of these critical facilities?
Yeah, I think Byron's done a good job. Obviously, we have generators which don't run on electric, right? They produce electricity through gas. So, again, it goes right back to the gas. But we've got generators and a lot of things that we have to have generators on to help continue to move that. Because you're right, brownouts, blackouts. If your wastewater treatment goes down or your water, I mean, all of a sudden, that affects in a very serious way quickly. You've got to have those two functions. You could live without electricity for a few days probably, right? But when those start backing up too, now all of a sudden you have a real health crisis that you have to deal with. So it's really important to keep those two things flowing both ways.
Right. And you think about those cities, governments, or county governments, think about those things in an emergency, maybe from a storm,
Right.
Goliath, 2-foot snowstorm, or maybe a bad wind event or tornado or something
Sure.
like that. But now we're having to start to have thoughts about, well, what if we start having brownouts as opposed to natural disasters that are affecting the grid?
Absolutely.
That's kind of scary. So how I guess the people in the electrical generation field are pretty concerned about all this.
Yeah, I think everything I've heard, yes, they're very, very concerned about it. I mean, obviously, if you don't have those base loads, it's hard when you've got to have that demand or pull from that demand. If it's not there, it's not there. There's only so much they can pull. And like Wade said, when you're trying to replace it with intermittent, he used a better word, but talking about the wind and the solar, those aren't constant. You can't rely on them. They might be great as bonuses, but they're not a reliable source, and we're losing those base loads. It's going to
Right.
be interesting.
It makes sense maybe for an individual,
Yeah, absolutely.
property owner, homeowner,
Sure.
to supplement their electricity, but as far
Yeah.
as the whole country's electrical grid to
Right.
to get off of those things, that does seem kind of crazy.
Well, just think about it. I mean, for a house, look at the roof and how many solar panels it takes to operate that house. Now take that same type of footprint and apply it to a Walmart with a massive footprint, a hospital, some of these huge buildings. I can only imagine how many solar panels you would have to have just to operate that building. I mean, if it takes a roof and a half to operate just your house with 3 to 4 people in it, Imagine what kind of solar impact you would have just to operate one of these. And I don't think people think about that way. They say,
Yeah.
oh, well, it works for my house. Well, yeah, go do a 4-story hospital with hundreds of rooms in it and folks that you can't not have power. It's crucial.
Right.
So, I think when folks start correlating and thinking through it, they're like, that might make sense. You're not completely lost. And hopefully I'm not.
What the former vice president has a think tank or organization. Are you concerned that a lot of this is just preaching to the choir, or is there a true benefit that you think can come out of having conversations like the one that was held last Thursday with the former vice president?
It sounds like there's hopefully true benefit that's going to come out. They take that information, they go and they try to help pass that information on to those that need it. I mean, when you're the former vice president, you probably have a pretty strong voice. So what we're hoping is, and what it sounds like is they gather all this information and then they take it to the spots they need to say, hey, here's what we're hearing. Here's actually how it's working. That's the hopes that's going to happen. And it sounds like that's the direction they're headed with it. So I think that's not, it wasn't wasted time. I feel good about that. I think they're really concerned about it and they really want to take that information.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it was the hearing the vice president's comments was interesting, and we played that back on the radio the next day and over the weekend, and take the politics out of it. I know there's a lot of people not happy with Vice President Pence over what happened after the 2016 election, but he still has a voice. He still has a connection with a certain aspect of the political process in Washington. So I guess. Have the conversation, right?
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. Like I said, if anybody would show up and say, hey, we want to have a conversation, we would try to put the same group together, because those conversations are crucial to folks actually. And I think that's what we've always said all along. Don't base your information on a news station. Don't base go to the ground and actually ask the folks that are dealing with it daily, how is this really working?
Yeah. So that's
to get that answer.
Good stuff. City Council meet last night?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have notes, it looks like.
Yes. A lot